Good morning, Dan and Amy. Holman Jenkins, The Wall Street Journal, good piece over the weekend. The media's Flynn sanity. Nowhere was that more on display than on the set of The View on Friday. Get a load of this.
Oh, boy.
Welcome back to the show.
Breaking news.
Oh, my God. Oh, breaking news. ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians. Yeah!
Oh, my God. I mean, it's almost insufferable.
I know we're not supposed to take The View seriously, but unfortunately some people do. But then this happened, much to Joy Behar's chagrin. ABC News suspends Brian Ross for 4 weeks without pay, effective immediately. There it is.
His source was wrong.
Well, there was a portion of the Trump directing Flynn to talk to the Russians
About working with Russians to defeat ISIS, correct?
Yeah.
Big difference.
That's an important
Big
detail. So there's that.
And then President Trump, too, on Saturday morning was asked about, are you worried about Mike Flynn revealing information during the investigation?
No, I'm not. And what has been shown is no collusion. No collusion. There's been absolutely no collusion, so we're very happy. And frankly, last night was one of the big nights.
He was talking about the tax plan passing through the Senate.
What about collusion among Mueller's team with the left? What about partisanship and politics on Mueller's team? Also over the weekend, an FBI agent at the center of both the Clinton email investigation and the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, removed from Mueller's team for exchanging derogatory text messages about Trump with a colleague. Oh, by the way, I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, honestly.
Yeah, they were anti-Trump text messages, and he also worked on the Paul Manafort case. So that might affect that as well. Yeah,
the colleague that Special Agent Peter Strzok was sending those text messages to has been identified as Lisa Page, an FBI lawyer who also was reportedly having an extramarital affair.
Oh.
Strzok and Page having an extramarital affair while exchanging texts about Trump. One's an FBI lawyer, the other is a top FBI investigator. This inspires a lot of confidence in the FBI, particularly after the Comey era. By the way, what Trump said about not at all worried about what Flynn has to say is the same thing Jim Comey said Trump said when Comey testified before a Senate committee back in May, saying that's essentially what Trump communicated to me, that if people around me did wrong, then fine, hold them accountable for the wrong they did. That was Comey's interpretation of a portion of the conversation he had with President Trump. So what are we talking about here? Well, let's separate the Flynn sanity from the law, and to help us do that is famed Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, who joins us now. Professor Dershowitz, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. The Joy Behar jumping for joy is so typical today of the media, and so many people, they elevate hope over reality. Senator Feinstein did the same thing yesterday when she said that Comey has a case of obstruction of justice against the president. That's what you would like him to have, and that's what you would like for there to be. But the reality is that you cannot charge a president with obstructing justice or him exercising his constitutional authority to fire Comey. Even if he had said, stop the investigation, he has the right to do that. Thomas Jefferson did that. Franklin Delano Roosevelt did that. President Abraham Lincoln did that. Presidents are allowed to determine who to investigate and who not to. It may not be the best system, but under our system, in which we have a unitary executive, the president is in charge of law enforcement.
And you also offered a viewpoint on the implications of the Flynn plea deal that I think is different than just about everything we're hearing outside of maybe Andy McCarthy over at National Review, who's a former federal prosecutor.
Right.
And that Flynn's plea deal actually signals weakness in Mueller's case. Explain.
I think that's right. First of all, if Flynn had anything really serious against the president could have easily pardoned him, the way President Bush the first pardoned Caspar Weinberger, who was going to point the finger of accountability for Iran-Contra directly back on the president. The president had the authority, the full constitutional authority, to pardon Flynn, and Flynn was looking for a pardon. He was really holding himself up. His lawyer was saying, I'm going to the highest bidder. If the president wants me on his team, he can pardon me. If the president doesn't pardon me, I'm going to Mueller. The president obviously wasn't particularly afraid, because what Flynn lied about was entirely and completely lawful. Flynn said that he went to the ambassador Kislyak of Russia and said, I hope you will delay or vote against the UN resolution condemning Israel, the one-sided resolution condemning Israel. Not only was that legal, it was desirable, because President Obama had distorted American foreign policy unilaterally, without the consent of Congress, without the consent of the American people, and decided for the first time in modern history to allow a one-sided anti-Israel resolution to get past the Security Council. That tied the hands of the president-elect, and the president-elect was entirely within his power to try to get Russia to vote against the resolution that would have untied his hands. I wish he had succeeded. He didn't, but he gets an A for effort. So to suddenly turn that into a crime is, again, a distortion of the constitutional authority of the president and the president-elect.
Well, why did Michael Flynn feel the need to lie to the FBI?
I can't figure that out. I think he probably thought what he did was illegal. Somebody told him about the Logan Act. The Logan Act does prohibit any private citizen from negotiating with a foreign power. But the Logan Act hasn't been enforced in 217 years. And if it had been enforced, Jimmy Carter would have been in jail for negotiating with Yasser Arafat after he left his presidency and telling him not to sign the Camp David Accords. Ronald Reagan would be in jail for negotiating with the Iranians the delay of the American hostage release until the day he got to office. Jesse Jackson would be in jail. Rodman would be in jail in North Korea. James Fonda would be in jail. Everybody would be in jail. So, of course, the Logan Act is dead letter. And Flynn may not have known that. And so he apparently lied about something he could have easily told the truth about.
In response to that contention that, this doesn't get any closer to the president, it projects weakness in the case. The suggestion is, well, wait a second. They went from Manafort to Flynn, and now the next target is Jared Kushner, so he's just working his way up the ladder, if you will. What do you say to that?
Well, all he's doing is getting people for jaywalking, essentially, for failing to fill out forms, for not telling the truth to Congress. Now, those are serious matters, but they're not related directly to the president. I don't believe that they're going to be able to go after Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner, if he in fact told Flynn to try to get the Russians to delay at the Security Council, did a good thing, certainly a completely lawful thing. And the reason, Joy Behar was jumping for joy is because if you can place these conversations during the campaign, it's very different than during the transition period. During the transition period, a president-elect has the right, the responsibility to shape his administration. And shaping his administration includes untying his hands. Barack Obama, as a lame duck president for whom I voted, was trying to tie the hands of the incoming president improperly, not unlawfully, not illegally, but improperly. I actually wrote an op-ed piece during that period of time praising Trump for trying to untie his hands and trying to make peace in the Middle East, something that Barack Obama had utterly failed to do.
Now, there was a tweet that we thought President Trump tweeted out, but apparently his lawyer, John Dowd, authored it, saying, I had to fire General Flynn because he lied to the vice president and the FBI. Is there any possible obstruction of justice charge that can come out of this tweet?
No, of course not. Impossible. First of all, you can't investigate or charge a president with obstruction of justice for doing what he had the constitutional authority to do. You just can't do that. The best proof of that is what George Bush the first did. He fired he pardoned Caspar Weinberger at a time when Weinberger was about to go on trial, and might very well have testified that the responsibility for Iran-Contra was in the Oval Office, and the president precluded that. And the special prosecutor, Lawrence Walsh, said essentially that ended his investigation. And so if anybody was ever going to be indicted for obstruction of justice, it would have been President Bush, but nobody even thought of it, because you can't indict or charge somebody with obstruction for simply exercising their constitutional authority. To do that would create a constitutional conflict between the executive and legislative branches of the government.
He is Alan Dershowitz, former professor at Harvard Law School, of course, author of a book that couldn't be more timely, Trumped Up, How Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. Professor Dershowitz, thanks as always for joining us and for your legal insights. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're the best. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.